So Philip, can you tell me a bit about some of the grants you've successfully applied for?
So we've applied for grants from the Community Foundation for Surrey, from Elmbridge Borough Council, and a variety of smaller grant-making trusts as well towards particular projects. Towards Marshall's charity, we've got money from the All Churches Trust, which is ecclesiastical insurance. So that's sort of quite a big variety, and some of that's been for big projects like the sound system in the church, which we received £5,000 from Marshall's charity, some money from All Churches Trust as well as our own fundraising initiatives. And then also for other not terribly interesting projects like stopping the basement from flooding or repairing the drains and things like that. And then also we had a grant towards starting our food bank, which we started a couple of years ago.
Okay, thanks. And how did you go about researching potential grant funders? Because there's quite a few out there. How did you sift through all the possibilities?
So the first thing is that there are loads of lists of grant-making trusts out there, and particularly grant-making trusts that will give to particular projects. So the first thing is to start with ones that you know will give to churches. So All Churches Trust have a list, the Diocese has its own list, lots of different places have got them. The key thing is to collect them all. So whenever anybody gives you any funding, they'll usually give you a leaflet about other sources of funding. Grab hold of it, start putting that into a database and just kind of seeing what you've got. The main way I find sources of funding is to look at other charitable projects and other voluntary projects in my parish, in my local area. So in the parish next door to us, the Guides had a new hall built, and they had the new hall built, they had it announced and publicised, and they listed every single person who had given them money. So I then nicked that list and then went through and rang up these people, got their grant-making trust guidelines, and we've been successful at getting money out of a number of those because they've given projects to other local places. They're aware of what's going on, but you also know that they will give money to things that you're connected to as well. So it's just a question of finding out just creating lists and finding the unusual things out there. Some places don't advertise and it is entirely word of mouth. So if you can find out who they are and find out who the secretary of the trust is, then you can give them a ring and then try and speak to them about the grant-making trust.
And the key question is who writes the applications and what advice would you give to others when it comes to filling in the application forms?
So predominantly in my parish I write the applications, just mainly because I have a long-standing history of writing grant applications from when I worked in the theatre. But we now have another couple of people who are writing grant applications for their particular area of expertise. So our children's worker is applying for grants for our children's work, and our parish missioner is applying for grants for some of the mission work we do in the parish. And so what's happening with them is that they're writing the grant application initially, and I'm then reviewing it and helping them work through it. But predominantly the work's done by me. However, once you've written 2 or 3 grants, most grant-making trusts ask for the same basic statutory information about your parish, your church and your activities, and so if you have that information to hand and you have it all in folders, particularly digital copies of it, then you can actually cut and paste quite a lot of stuff, obviously being careful that you do make sure you haven't applied to the wrong charity with the name of a different charity in it. So it's my kind of bag at the moment. The key thing I would say, more than anything else when you're writing grant applications, is that you read every single bit of paperwork that the charity can give you, and you also look at other projects that they have successfully funded. About 60 to 70% of grant applications get turned down because either they're not appropriate for the charity that they've applied to, or that they've explicitly said that they will not fund that type of project, or actually they just don't fit the criteria well enough. And so the criteria and what they have funded in the past is the best guide to actually getting a good grant application in.
Thanks. And what other general tips would you have for anyone who's looking for funding?
I think the first thing is that if you can have a personal conversation with somebody at the grant-making trust, that's a very good idea. Don't ring up just for an empty chat, but have very specific questions and just trying to get a very clear idea about what it is they're after.